So today we're going to be taking a look at the alternative future of the world. Now this is part number 4 of the series, and if you haven't seen the other parts, I highly suggest that you go watch them because, well, 1, you need context, and 2, they're very good videos. Just a recap of some of the things that happened in the last video: we had China breaking out into a civil war, we had a little war over here in East Africa, we had Serbia getting NATOized, and we had a Mexican civil war breakout. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. It really helps the channel out, and it shows that you guys are enjoying this series. Now I say this in every alternative future video, and it's because it is kind of important. I've had a tendency to not do too good with series in the past, and so far the series is doing excellent. It's my most successful series ever. So yeah, if you want to see it keep going, make sure to show some support. And that's all. So let's go ahead and start in this scenario. So first off, we're actually going to be picking up in China, where their civil war is kind of coming to its end. Now I say coming to its end because the Chinese Communist Party is collapsing. Republic forces in the south now push up and into inner China. We also see Indian forces expanding their front line, as well as the Tibetans. In the north, Russia also pushes further into Manchuria, capturing a large majority of the area and getting super close to Beijing. Now at this point in time, Russia and the West are kind of racing to get to Beijing first, because ultimately that will decide the fate of China. The West, by the way, is this color. We also see these guys sneaking around northern China and attempting to cut off Russia from further expansion. That leaves the central area, which both forces push into, and then once again deaths there on the border. Now like I said, the Chinese Communist Party is currently falling apart. In fact, it falls apart so bad that another communist party breaks away from the already falling apart Communist Party, and China just kind of ceases to exist at this point. Now with this, a lot of countries see that a land grab is up for stakes. Countries like Mongolia now push across into the border and start to take land. Over in the southwest, Tibet finishes up their land grab as they start to just kind of stop and consolidate their country, while Xinjiang does the exact same thing and eventually stops. India advances a little bit further but sees no further interest in taking over these areas of China. The Republic of China starts invading the old Communist Party, and the West manages to capture Beijing. Now this is a good thing for them because they'll most likely set up a pro-Western Chinese government in this area, which is probably the most valuable area in China. Up north, the Russians go full force as they push down out of Manchuria and into central China, but eventually they can no longer expand westward as the Communist Party and the Mongolians have cut them off. In addition to this, the West now fully takes over all of the northern central China area, which isolates Russia to just Manchuria. From here, the West pushes into central China and now meets up with the border of the Communists, and from here they invade the Communists with the help of the Republic. In central China, Mongolia pushes a little bit further until they eventually stop, and the remaining land is technically ceded over to the Communists, which will soon be finished up by the West and the Republic. And when I say Republic, I'm referring to the Republic of China, which is not directly Taiwan, but they are pro-Taiwanese and would most likely unify with Taiwan once the war is over. So now the Republic and the West are just smashing through central China, as this is not a very strong party. And now we see this. So China has now been turned into China. So from here, the West and the Republic of China kind of make a deal with each other, saying that the West will cede over the land to the Republic of China as long as they are pro-Western and possibly join the PDO. The Republic agrees to this, and all this land is ceded over to them. And from here, one large treaty is drawn up between all the powers except for Russia. Alright, taking a look at this peace treaty here, we have a lot of interesting events taking place. Now, obviously the most notable thing is that the Republic Party of China has taken over a majority of the land. Now some of this land was previously occupied by countries such as Xinjiang and Tibet and even Mongolia, but that land was ceded over in the peace treaty because, you know, they kind of got their claims. Another thing to notice is that Russia still has this land up here. Now if we take a look at the alliance map, we can see that it is Russian occupied. Technically, this isn't a country, but it did create a huge dispute between China and Russia now. Also, you just saw on that map that the new Chinese Republic Party did join the PDO, so that was a promise upheld, and this gives a huge power boost to, I guess, the West in the Pacific area. Now from here, we have a lot of economic rebuilding being done in the Republic, and eventually we have unification between Taiwan and the Republic, which is a huge step for the countries. We even have the US reseeding over this land to Taiwan. I believe it's called Hainan Island, but I feel like I pronounced that wrong, so correct me if I am wrong, which I know I am. But yeah, we have one whole Chinese Republic again, and everybody inside is mostly happy. Tibet is released, and honestly, I'm just gonna say it now, I love these borders over here. I know these aren't exact because I know Xinjiang goes out to, like, I think there, but Tibet looks pretty good. It's a little bit smaller, more so like that, but I don't know, I really love these western borders. But like I said, we have a lot of tension between Russia and China now, and China's a part of the West technically now. So yeah, tension between Russia and the United States is at a high. Speaking of tension, and also speaking of the United States, the Mexican Civil War. Now, while all that China stuff was happening, we did have some progress being made over here, and it's definitely not in the favor of Mexico. All of Baja California falls to the United States while they continue their campaign into Mexico. The Mexican rebellion in the north makes progress in this area, although it is a very geographically difficult area. They push down the coast and capture some cities. While over here in the Yucatan, we have the same rebellion pushing up towards Mexico City. Overall, the stability of Mexico is basically non-existent, with the rebel forces meeting up in the south through a huge sweep. We have the Mexican government surrendering. And with this, the United States and the Mexican rebellion set up a new government and draw up a peace treaty. Alright, looking at this peace treaty, we have America manifesting its destiny. Now, the borders I've drawn here are following state borders within Mexico, so they are technically realistic. They follow the northern state borders, so America basically just took over the Baja states, and then they took over the states that border the United States itself. Now, the new Mexican government really didn't want this to happen, but it happened because America, and well, they just got to deal with it. However, the United States, kind of in compensation for taking all the land, they did give Mexico a lot of economic aid in order to fix themselves. They also provided troops for cracking down on cartels, and they even invited Mexico to join in on NATO or the PDO, in which they declined for now, as they are just focusing on themselves and stability within the country. They totally didn't fund that civil war, by the way. But yeah, America is now surrounded by two allies, one to the north and one to the south, and also there's a lot of influence going on over here. And we aren't going to be straying too far from Mexico, because now we head on down south, where Venezuela does funny. Now you see, we have an incident where Venezuela does something on the border of Colombia. Allegedly, Venezuelan troops open fire on some Colombian troops in the north, and this is seen as an act of war to Colombia. Now, there's one funny thing about Colombia, and it's in the Rio Pact, which consists of a majority of South America, a good bit of Central America, and the United States. Also, I know that these borders aren't really going to be updated on the alliance map. That's just something we're going to have to deal with. I really don't feel like drawing the borders twice. But yeah, Venezuela attacks Colombia, and that activates the Rio Pact. Now Venezuela is at war with pretty much every country in the Americas, but add pain to the burn, Guyana joins the war because they have a big border dispute with Venezuela, and they really want to resolve it, so they declare war. Now Venezuela here is supplied by Russia. Russia sends over volunteers as well as equipment, but Russia really is losing its grip on its allies and itself here. China was just lost to the West, and now they just have Belarus and Ukraine. They still have Iran and maybe some of these African countries, but Venezuela is one of their last 10 points in America. Cuba fell to the US, and Nicaragua is on extreme pressure right now. So yeah, they really don't want to lose this. So at first, we do have Venezuela doing pretty well. They push over into northern Colombia and make some land gains. They also push over into Guyana. However, that's their full extent, as the Brazilians are now soaring through the jungles. In addition to this, liberty is about to be served in the capital of Venezuela, and the cocaine hippos fight back. A stalemate is established in Guyana, but that doesn't last long because everyone's coming crashing down. Colombia and the United States managed to capture all of western Venezuela, and eventually the country collapses. So let's go ahead and see what these powers have in mind for Venezuela. Alright, looking at this peace treaty here, Venezuela gets divided up by three of its neighbors. Colombia gets land, Brazil gets land, and then Guyana gets land. Taking a look at the alliances, the new Venezuelan government is set up, and these guys join in on the Rio Pact. And then we also have Guyana joining in on the Rio Pact. So all in all, this war has actually kind of been good. Not because it overthrew Venezuela's dictatorship or anything, not because it, maybe eventually will fix the economy of Venezuela, but because everyone's a lot more unified. And yeah, so we've really just kind of knocked out all of the modern day hostilities. China as a whole just kind of fell apart. Now, I'm not saying that's actually going to happen in real life, but the whole China invading Taiwan thing could more or less lead into that. The Middle East, that's been settled. The Balkans have been settled. Ukraine's been settled. East Africa has been settled. And then now we have Venezuela and Cuba being settled. If you think of a modern day conflict that could break out, all those modern conflicts have been resolved other than NATO versus Russia. The only other conflict that I can think of is India versus Pakistan. And, at this point, they just learned to hate each other. So I don't see a conflict breaking out too soon between these two. I'm sure you guys are also yelling at me in the comments saying that there's a very obvious modern conflict that I've missed. But yeah, so the world is now a lot less hostile other than the fact that two superpowers want to throw hands. Looking at the alliance map, pretty much every country is, in one way or another connected with another, other than obviously Africa and then South Asia. The last thing we'll be doing in this video is a stabilization mission. Essentially, Myanmar is falling apart in this timeline, and someone's gonna have to do something about it, and that someone is the PDO. Now, in real life, Myanmar is currently under a coup, and that's no fun. But in this scenario, we have that coup never being abolished, and it's just a hellhole. So now the PDO starts a special operation mission in Myanmar, which is essentially just to annex all of the country, which is essentially just to capture all of the country, stabilize it, and then make a puppet out of it. One interesting thing we do have happening here is a collaboration between the PDO and India. In real life, the PDO does not exist, but we do have something similar to it called the Quad, which is an alliance between the United States, India, Japan, and Australia. It's not a defensive pact, it's just mostly aimed at containing China and stopping China from doing China things. In this timeline, the Quad alliance really doesn't have a purpose anymore, so India just kind of, does a special operation with the PDO, which is in a way a replacement for the Quad. But with this, Myanmar gets navally invaded while also getting land invaded. Now, jungle does exist here, but this is like 2050 or something, so nobody really cares about that anymore. That was so 1970s. Eventually, after getting beaten on all sides, Myanmar capitulates, and now they draw up a peace treaty. Alright, looking at this peace treaty here, the entire world is confused because they said that they would stabilize Myanmar, but instead they just kind of taken some land. Now, this totally isn't a Western attempt in trying to get India away from Russia and onto their side, totally not that or anything, but it totally is that, and they decided to give India some land just to kind of say, hey, we're friendly as well and we want you on our side. That's also mostly because India is now probably the third strongest country in the world since China kind of collapsed a little bit. These guys have to rebuild, so I'm assuming they're in the early 10 area. The US is most likely still the strongest, followed by Russia, then India, and yeah, so those are probably the strongest countries at this point. But that is going to do it for today's alternative future video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, share it, do all the fun YouTube stuff that makes the video do good. If you want to join my Discord server, there's a link to it in the description below. There's also a link to my Twitter account, if you dare go there. I'm having a lot of fun making this series, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. Leave any suggestions or ideas that I could do for the series in the future, because like I said, we are getting to the point where I can just kind of make stuff up that may not be realistic. We're at least at the year of 2050, maybe 2060 in that area, so things could go however they want. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.